Welcome back to another episode of World Bigfoot Radio.
And this one's going to be kind of a cool show because it's somebody I've been trying to get on for quite a while now, and everything finally lined up. He's got a computer that works and all that good stuff that we're not using because his phone works better. And so first thing we're going to do is we're going to have him actually talk about some pictures and video that were at the end of the last show. And then we're going to talk about his background and some of the stuff that has happened to him that may or may not relate to this. But with that, let me introduce from that other continent over there, way over there to the east. You guys look over there to the east. See way over there to the east, beyond the ocean, and then past like a country or so, there's Germany. That's where he's at. Welcome, Robert Boston, Bigfoot in Germany.
Howdy.
Okay, well, hey, so interestingly enough, you kind of are one of the better people to take a look at this thing. And like I said before, this the pictures that were at the end of the last show, part 2, episode 84, Rich Soul, were taken by somebody that was out squatching with me just on a day trip. We went up to Patty Canyon, where, of course, I have a whole series of videos about that on my channel on the playlist that is Montana Bigfoot Project. And so I spent a lot of time up there already. So we were just up there for like an hour or two walking around, and we were going to recreate the shots from what I had seen when it was pretending to be a stump, and I caught him, basically. And Vinny's sitting in the same place where the stump, quote-unquote, had been, and I was standing where I had been. He was taking pictures of me in high res. And then a few days later, he started sending crops to me from these pictures going, dude, what's this? Dude, what's this? So I just had Robert take a look at it and see what he thought about it. So give us your official opinion on these, Robert.
I kind of, since we don't actually truly know the true nature of Bigfoots, I kind of break them down into two categories. The 8+ foot tall hairy monsters, the Bigfoot /
Yep.
And then what I call the others. I have run into them over here in Germany, actually Europe. I've been in other places as well and also seen them. They typically kind of line up directly with the Fae, the fairy realm, and the old legends from Ireland and from back in the day. They always seem to be associated with vegetation, etc. So when I'm looking at this photo with you standing next to the tree, I see both of them in there. You've got what I call the others, and several of them actually pretty close by. And then you also have at least those 1, 2, 3, maybe a fourth up on the hill. The actual Bigfoot, Sasquatch in there. And then, of course, they're not going to stand out there in 4K high res and say, "Hi, I'm right here in the sun." They're hiding back in the shadows and behind trees, etc. But they are definitely there. So
yeah, to me, it looked like there was at least 3 that I was looking at that go, that looks like a squatch, that looks like a squatch, that looks like a squatch. Besides the screen captures that we had in the last show, there's another one up to the left side of the picture that I was looking at going, well, there's no top on that brown tree stump. There's no upper part on that. It's not a tree. It's a brown tree stump, or it's something else. and kind of leaning towards something else because I don't remember.
That's something else.
Up there.
There's one behind you up the hill, another one of those tree stumps that are probably 15, 18 feet high. It has this weird wobble in the center of it. And I just did a blow up on that. And there's something there, but it's probably one of the others. They have a tendency to mess with the electromagnetic fields. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I carry in the field with me is an EMF detector, and usually when I get in and around their areas, and when the woods look like a Monet water painting, and a watercolor painting, you usually end up with some pretty high EMF readings around there, in those areas, and the alarm goes off, and it's pretty insane. End up with readings of like 1,685 millivolts off the side of a tree structure. Stuff. And there's nothing around. We don't have like high tension power lines and stuff like that over here. Everything's underground, and it's usually in connection with the autobahns and stuff like that. So it makes it easier to get to. They don't go digging tunnels and trenches out in the middle of the forests.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That's too bad for Bigfoot, because the ones here get to take advantage of them putting, giant power lines across the mountaintops where there's no roads or humans, so they can use them like super highways.
Exactly. Yeah, they do that. And here we have on the edge of the village. In fact, it's right on the edge of the village. The power substation for the village that I live in, and I think there was 7 or 8 really, really high power transformers there with cables the size of my wrists going into them with exposed wire. And this is one of the areas that when I would be, while I was walking moose, I would, I would walk right by there, just taking him for his daily walks. And this is where I found a large percentage of the ones I called the others all over that area, especially around that substation, the power substation. Are they using it? Maybe.
I know we've talked about that before, and you're not the only researcher that I've talked to about this. Others have noticed it, because others have noticed the others, and others have noticed that the others seem to be around areas with big electrical.
Yeah.
So they seem to like more than other areas, and that's not true of Bigfoot. It doesn't seem to make any damn difference.
Right. I've had 1 or 2 instances where they would come up, especially in the dark, where you could smell them. And over here, typically, it's a heavy-duty, stale urine smell.
Yeah.
I mean, really bad. And it's funny that just before Moose died, I don't want to talk about Moose dead, but just before he died, I had him out. I was actually shooting like some memorial footage, and we were sitting in an open field that had lots of the others activity in it, and all of a sudden I smell that heavy duty urine smell. Came on me like a wall, just like boom, hit me. And I said, I can smell you. It obviously had walked up from behind me, which there was the cornfields behind me, and a lot of activity in there as well. In the past, and I said, I can smell you. You smell like urine, and it immediately departed the area. I was like, gotcha.
Like, oh, busted.
Yeah.
Damn, I forgot humans could smell. Damn.
Yeah, that was pretty bizarre.
Wow. So what have you done any further research, especially vis-a-vis folklore legendary from over there, on what the others could potentially be? Because it seems to me like a lot of the sightings of them cluster around like portals or ley lines or places like that. And then that also makes me wonder if they could be like what the Icelanders are talking about when they say like the Huldufolk, the hidden people.
I would guarantee that they're talking about the same beings. Now, I looked into, that was one of the things that I was dealing with, was looking into what the others actually could be. And because of the language barrier over here, and the wife wasn't always available to Ubersets for me and translate, I looked into the UK, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, see if I could find additional in English stories, in his, myths, legends, whatever, anything basically written down on little creatures. Because I have seen things that look like what we would consider as a leprechaun, little green beings and stuff like that. And then we have the, besides Bigfoot, we've got the ogres and this kind of stuff. And I've gotten one that I call it an ogre. Whether it is or not, I don't know, but I call it an ogre because it looks like something that belongs in a Shrek cartoon. I swear.
It looks like Shrek, only orange, basically. And you guys are looking at it right now, so you can decide what you think.
Yeah, in the yellow box on the top right corner. Yeah, it's bizarre. So when I finally found some records regarding little people and hidden people and things that had the ability to disappear and this kind of stuff, it led right into the Fae, or the wee people, the wee folk.
Yeah.
And a lot
not to be confused with Bigfoot, who is the wee folk, apparently. By the smell.
Exactly. They lined up perfectly, and then I'd heard stories about Iceland where they would divert a highway because they didn't want to go through that rocky mound because of the little people.
Yeah.
They seem to line up, but this is the land of Germany, the land of Grimm's fairy tales and all kinds of crazy insanity and things that have happened throughout the years, both in modern time as well. So when I would find something new, or something that was at least new to me, the very first thing that I would do was go look into other people's videos and see if I could find that happening somewhere in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And on every single occasion, except for the one I call the dragon, on every single occasion, I was able to find it in another researcher's area. That includes even the little things that they shapeshift, and they do it so fast. I'm pretty certain that you can't see it taking place. But if you shoot it in video at 60 frames per second or higher, and you go through it frame by frame, you can sit there and watch these things change. They're bizarre little creatures. I don't probably 3 feet tall, 3.5 to 4 feet tall. They're strange. But again, that lines up with the old legends. So, have I? Yes.
Yeah. Well, those old legends are talking about something. I mean,
they really are.
You're talking about the little people there, and I got somebody he's not going to be on the show or anything, and he lives up in Alaska, and every so often he contacts me and tells me a story he heard, or somebody saw this and that or the other thing. And just recently here, he sent me a really neat picture of a fish drying rack. And you know what a traditional fish drying rack in the Pacific Coast looks like. And it's, set up just like all the old-fashioned ones you've seen. And it's got all the little strips of fish drying on it and everything. And it's 18 inches tall. They found it, in this area no humans live in, next to this little lake. Here's this teeny fish drying rack.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
creepy. Humans aren't going to make a fish drying rack 18 inches tall and put miniature strips of fish on it in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, but that's the Chinook, and you're talking about up in Alaska and the Arctic Circle and stuff, and the Eskimos have legends about the little people. They're everywhere.
Yes, they do. Yeah, they're worldwide. So this phenomena, whether you're talking about a large, 1,000-pound hairy subject that's walking through the woods, and or little people, or all of it is and the albatwitch, they are. It's a worldwide phenomenon. It's everywhere, and it doesn't matter if you're down in the Indonesia where the orang pendek is, or up in Nepal or the U.S. or Europe.
Yeah. Let me just back you up on that here for a second, because I just, again, talking about people that contact me out of the blue. Here's a perfect example. People, especially in North America, when we think of Europe, we don't think that there's Bigfoot there.
Right.
And I
days were over.
yeah, exactly. And it seems like most of the countries over there actually do have Bigfoot still, which is really kind of mind-boggling. And then you look at it more and you go, well, wait. Germany and France both declared Bigfoot an endangered species back in like 1967.
Right.
So they already grudgingly admitted it's real. It's just endangered. And then I was just contacted like 2 days ago by somebody, I told you this before we came on the air, who watches the show and decided that they would take a look around their local area and see if they could find any tree structures. And they found a couple trees that were snapped up like 15, 20 feet up, and there was a huge arch there. And I asked them, and they said, yeah, they had looked at it, and the top was shoved into the ground. It wasn't natural. And they took a nice picture of them standing there and everything. And this is in the mountains in Ireland. And by the way, thanks for sending the cool pictures, Ollie.
There you go.
Good job. Keep looking around. Keep looking around, buddy. But the point is that there's a sort of there's a blind spot over there in Europe, and they've sort of gone so far into this hyper scientific thinking that they're in their minds no chance any of this stuff could possibly be real. So they won't go looking around for it. And like you mentioned earlier, the people they don't walk off the trail. Ever.
They never leave the trail. They never leave the trail. I just posted a video up on my channel a couple days ago, and I had gone to Wiesbaden, which is north of me, about two and a half hours north. And there was a lady up there, and she was taking her 89-year-old mother for a walk in the nature park, and she saw some, there's structures along the trail, which, we wouldn't typically see that in the U.S. But she could see
generally
that.
They'll keep,
what the heck? What is this?
Yeah.
She left the trail. And as soon as she did, it was like the whole thing just completely opened up. And she's got things that look like foxholes and huts and, major weaving of sticks to make walls and including a roof on top of these square huts all over the place out there. And now she's personally seen 2 Sasquatches out there in that particular area. But it's like, if you ask the Forstmeister, they have, let's make this clear. They have a completely different system of forestry management over here. So they have a Forstmeister. He's like the head guy that'll be in charge of a particular forest, and it's not just tree health, but it also includes all the animal species that may be in there. He's personally responsible for all that stuff. And then he has workers that are foresters that go out, and whether they're planting trees or cutting down structures or trees, and then they sell those off to people that wood dealers. Mm. It's a completely different system. If you go talk to that Forstmeister, though, and ask them about the wild man, Wildermann, most of the time what they do is they just completely shut up. Literally, they don't say another word as long as you're standing there in their office. They just won't say another word. Even though Germany, said they're on the endangered species list.
Mm-hmm. Peculiar, eh?
Very peculiar. But
so do you figure all their offices are actually wiretapped, and that's why they won't?
Well, I don't know if they're wiretapped or if it's just one of those situations where they say, okay, there's a cover up here. Yeah. But prior to World War II, there was no cover up. It was something that was well known. Literally, absolutely well known. They knew that they existed. They had a name for them. They left them alone, and perhaps that's why they don't leave the forest trails. They stay on the trails. Yeah, is because that part of the forest belongs to the wild man. But it wasn't until after they lost World War II and we came in and basically managed the country for several generations that this became a position of cover up. It's really strange,
So you think we forced them into it?
I think we may have, because they have hundreds of years of tradition and legend and explanation and everything else for the wild man and all the other things that are out there in the forest. that people were seeing before we got, zapped by 4G and everything else that's around us. People were a lot more in touch with the Earth, just like the Native Americans in the U.S. They weren't getting zapped with all the kinds of crazy electronic, stuff flying through the air. And all anyone has to do that's a hunter or someone who goes camping and backpacking is next time they're out there, notice how you become more in tune with what's around you after you've been out there for a couple of days.
Right.
Get away from your routers and your high tension power lines and stuff like that. And it takes a couple of days for you to kind of clean out and get in touch again. It's very bizarre how this whole thing has come around like this. But anyway, I don't know. It's just very, very strange. Their activity. Now that place in Wiesbaden, it's a nature park in the center of the city. It's a very good sized nature park, but the Forstmeister actually lives on the grounds. His backyard is this big nature park. There is no way on earth he doesn't know what's going on in his assigned section of the forest.
Yeah,
he's responsible for everything. So they have like a degree in wildlife biology and just everything that would be covered within that forest. They have to be perfectly trained on it and recognize and manage everything that's in their forest. So yeah, there's no way he doesn't know what's going on.
Wow. Yeah, that's just.
Yeah, it's an interesting system, but it's right now. Germany is in the middle, and I heard from somebody over in the southwest France the other day. Also, they're experiencing the same thing. We are in the middle of an extreme flap over here, sighting flap. I'm getting 4 to 5 different sighting reports, and people contacting me saying, "Hey, yeah, I got that stuff over here too," and my neighbor saw one. It was going for a walk. So it's right now the 2 people that I'm dealing with most is in Wiesbaden, and the other one is all the way up in Bremen, that is like way up north, way up north, up near like the North Sea. That's where they've got the ports between Bremen and Hamburg. That's where the major ports are for this part of Europe.
Hamburgers.
I'm telling you, man, the one that attacked the horse, that's in broad daylight. They apparently just something is going on, and I've heard a lot of researchers talk about how the population seems to have exploded all of a sudden. I've been dealing with that for 5 years over here now. Mm-hmm. They're right on the edge of the forest. Or, they're in the forest right on the edge of the village. They're in the farmlands that are right on the edge of the village. You'll hear screams, especially in the summertime when it's really like crazy hot here because we don't have air conditioning. I'll hear screams. The forest is 3 blocks away. And, for some reason, nobody ever calls the Polizei. I don't know. You hear screams like it sounds like a woman is being murdered up there, and nobody's calling the police.
Yeah, right.
It's just normal.
Yeah. Every 100 years or so, you hear lots of screams coming from the woods. Pay no attention. Keep walking. Keep walking. Okay, didn't you tell me that there was a town that had a really old fountain in the middle of their Wildermann?
Yeah, that's actually the name of the village is Wildermann, which is
Wildermann.
Yeah, wild
man. Yeah.
At the center of most of these, what they call the Altstadt, which is the old city, the original city that's probably my village was founded in 1048, so it's almost 1,000 years old here.
Wow.
But most of these little villages have like a center fountain, and that's where people came with their buckets and got water. The center fountain of Wildermann is a Bigfoot standing there with the fountain. That's the center.
I'll do my best to track down the image for you guys to look at.
Okay.
But yeah, that sounds intriguing. That it's like the the wilderness park they've got in China, where they've got like the huge statue of the mama yeti kissing the baby yeti, and you actually drive underneath that to get into the wildlife park over there. So it's just so weird with these countries. It's like on the one hand, they practically come right out and admit it's real, and on the other hand, they're like, no, it's imaginary. Shut up. Don't walk away. Don't look that direction. Don't pay no attention to the wild man juggling the tree trunks.
Yeah, that doesn't happen here.
Yeah, exactly.
Even though we've got a reserve set aside just for them.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and you hear about it all over Europe. I mean, they get pictures of them coming out of the mountains in Poland and stuff too. I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, see, that's the interesting thing, because that's kind of like the dividing line. So I've been in this since 2005, and I started in California. I've been in Nevada. I've researched in Idaho, parts of northern Arizona, and up around Flagstaff. And all that time until 2014, I had never heard of anything coming out of Western Europe. Western Europe, that's the dividing line. Poland is over on the eastern side.
Right.
And in Eastern Europe, sure, all the time. Whether it's the Almasty in Russia, or it just that's okay. But we never hear anything from Western Europe. So when I came over here, I assumed that my Bigfooting days were over. I didn't come over here on vacation. I moved here. So, and since I had never heard of anything out of Western Europe, I thought that was it. So the wife and I went for a walk and through the forest, and there was a bench. We sat down on this bench, and I tried to take a selfie, and there was a big X behind us. And I went, wait a minute. I didn't even take the picture. I saw it in the camera on the screen. I was like, wait a minute, what? I turned around and I looked, and there's this big X. I'm like, oh my goodness.
And you're like, what? They're not supposed to be here in Krautland. What the hell?
You're not supposed to be here. No. No. I had assumed that I had gotten away from it. So I took a walk in another part of our forest. I call it the distal thing, and that was my site one. It's kind of the backside of the meadow, which is my site two and primary site. And as I'm walking down, I've got a camera in my hand, Nikon camera in my hand. I've got my iPhone 6 Plus in my pocket running video. And I hadn't bought a camcorder at that point. I just had that Nikon bridge camera. And I walk down this probably 1,000-year-old Roman road that cuts through our forest. And there's a restaurant on the left, and there's a house on the right, and leaning against the person's fence, this house was a giant X structure. And I went, wow. I mean, leaning against the fence, and they've got this dog that is a complete psychopath.
Wonder why.
Well, that was, when I saw that X, I'm going, well, no wonder that dog is nuts.
He's having
to deal with this on a nightly basis.
And they came up and set that up right next to the dog's territory, so the dog's freaking the hell out.
He is. And I mean, now this is all in just a matter of minutes, because the parking lot's right there at the top of this road. I get a rock thrown through the trees, and it lands at my feet from the left. And then I swing the camera in that direction, and I get another rock thrown from the right. And I swing back in that direction, and then I hear what sounds like a 1980s hair band drummer just losing its mind up in a tree next to me. And as I start to pan up to see if I can see anything, I literally hear my phone in my pocket do this electronic sizzling. It's being fried.
Oh, God.
And so I go up with the camera. I can still see the screen on the back of my camera, and I look up. I don't see anything up there, but I can, hear it quite well. It's just like this crazy drummer just going nuts. And I ended up spending probably another half hour or so walking around, looking at all the different structures that come right up to the edge of the trail. X's and leaners and arches that are pinned to the ground. And, I'm just blown away at how many structures that there were. Now, the reason I chose that particular forest is because across the street and, down this kind of catty corner from this from this parking lot and this restaurant is an old folks home. And my wife's mother has been working there since late 70s, I think. She's an occupational therapist. During the summers, my wife, when she was a teenager, would go there and help out. And when you have to walk past this forest to get there, and she was always freaked out about this particular forest. And I said, well, why would you be, what is it about this forest? She says, I don't know, it's just a dark feeling. So, of course, that's the first place that I go.
Yeah.
And this is what happened. So
that's like the dinner bell for Bigfoot researchers. You hear that? Oh, this place is really spooky. Nobody
dark?
goes there.
Okay.
Ding, 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 ding. Oh, I'm on my way.
Exactly. So I get home to download the footage, and the first thing I did when I got back to the car was look at the phone, and the phone's working. And everything seems to be working, except it won't take a picture. The camera module is exactly what fried. Only the camera module. So I go and I look at the footage on I pull the SD card out, and it goes right up to the point where as I'm starting to pan up into the tree, and then it stopped. It goes to white snow. That was it. So I spent like the next 3 weeks almost digging online to try to find out what could fry both a camera module in a phone and only the SD card in the camera, because the camera works fine. Somehow only the SD card was affected at the exact same moment as the iPhone's camera module fried. And the only thing that I could find is an electromagnetic pulse that could affect both of them at the same time. Literally at the exact same instance. So that's why I started carrying around an EMF detector. And
we may have
invaluable.
We may have video of Bigfoot zapping a camera, and it's included in the new introduction part of the show. So if you guys are just like bleeping past the music at the beginning, you might want to go look again.
Go back and look.
Yeah, because in between the big weird howl sound that God knows what that was, but it was captured up in northern Ontario in January by some ski hikers, and where there's some obvious dogman making noise because we got that from a show with Cindy on. Right in between, there's a little quiet spot there. And you see there's a face in the tangled brush, and all of a sudden there's a flash. And I've seen the actual video, of course. I clipped that piece out of it. And the person that's filming it is going, "Don't you dare zap me, you little bleep." And it flashes. And then after that, and I didn't include it because it would have taken too much time to put it in the beginning part, but he sticks his tongue out to you.
Now that's another thing that when we look at this entire phenomenon throughout the world, and I had seen it repeatedly until, of course, I went back to look for it again, was in India. Of course, they have like 1 million gods.
Yeah.
One of them is got a black head, black face, and a black tongue, and it's always represented as the tongue being stuck out and like down near its chin. Mm-hmm. I've seen that. Kerry Arnold, Bigfoot Odyssey. That was his experience. Was this thing screamed at him and then stuck its tongue out at him. The I don't remember which critter it was, but in the fairy realm, there was one of them that was mischievous, that would stick its tongue out. And we as humans, at least in Western society, we also recognize, sticking your tongue out at someone is kind of like being a brat.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just weird how all that stuff, no matter where you seem to look, it all gels together.
Well, we have personalities too. This particular one that we got this piece of video of him trying to zap the camera, which he did. He fried the battery on it. It died a couple minutes later. Anyway, he's been captured multiple times on video. Never really good images of him or anything, but you can see him basically. And he's got kind of an attitude. And at one point, apparently, when the person in question showed up at the research area and started doing the usual "let's pan the the wood line, she caught sight of this one standing just inside the brush line, and he was holding up a cell phone and stuck his tongue out. Like, I've got one of those things too. Who knows where the hell he stole it from?
Good grief.
Yeah, probably didn't know what actually to do with it, but stuck his tongue out and held one up like, yeah, I got one of these things too.
That is bizarre.
I hope he brought it back to whoever he kiped it from, because they're probably pretty cheesed that he ran off with their cell phone.
Probably, and probably someone was probably getting ready to take a picture of a pretty tree or flowers or something, and it sticks its head out and
yeah. Or most interesting case scenario, they've got one of those GPS locators on it so that they can ping it and figure out where it is, and they find it's like 35 feet up in the crotch of a tree in the middle of the woods.
I actually have that turned on my cell phone. Of course, it's on my Mac, but my MacBook. But I have it turned on my cell phone just in case something ever happened to me while I was out in the woods. I didn't make it home. The wife could actually ping my cell phone at least and find out, where it was last or where I was at some point with it, just in case.
Where to send the meat wagon to.
Exactly, yeah. Where to send the meat wagon, or at least where to begin the search for my body.
Well, his cell phone and his hand are over here. I don't know where the rest of
I don't know where the body went, but here's a finger.
Yeah. Ooh, another piece of finger. Ooh,
it looks like the liver's missing.
Oh, what would just eat the liver and throw everything else away?
Yeah, it's I don't know. It's really a strange place over here. So in 2014, when I got here, there was a flap going on, and then everything kind of settled down until about the last maybe 3 months ago. It kicked off, and right now it's currently in. It's in full swing. I have actually offered, other researchers to come over here and help me and actually give them a place to stay and even take them out castle stomping if they wanted to afterward. Nobody's ever taken me up on it.
Wimps.
It's like the most expensive part of a European trip is the hotel room. Those can be extremely expensive. For something that really isn't all that great. But nobody, I said, I've got a place to stay, a huge home that's like, 250 years old at my mother-in-law's house. She lives there by herself. No one's ever taken me up on it. That's like a 3-bedroom home too, which is really, really unusual over here. Everything here is apartments.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Well, 250 years ago, they still had some space over there, so they could make things.
And they still built on top of each other.
Yeah, I know.
Strange is the farmers, their home, the farm home, and the barn, and all that stuff. That's within the city, and so you'll see tractors, carrying a disc or a cart, a produce cart or something, driving down the roads all the time over here. And then the fields themselves are actually outside the city limits. And the reason they did that is because until just, prior to World War I, they were still killing each other. Villages would go to war against other villages right next door. And it was usually over resources.
And do you think that has anything to do with the bloody history of the area that you're researching? Because we talked about that. I think
so.
Where those little villages used to fight with each other all the time. And it seemed like it was centered around this little lake subsequently drained.
Right. So, which doesn't exist anymore because we won that war. My village actually won that conflict. So there's 5 surrounding villages that all, they changed the name. They, like they do in the U.S., they'll grab a little area that has a bunch of villages and rename it and make it all one, name it under one city. But there used to be a lake around over here just to the north. And there are 5 surrounding villages that all hated each other. My particular village is actually backs up to the side of a hill, which makes it kind of difficult for farming. And what they wanted to do was fill in this lake and turn it into farmland, but leave creeks flowing to each one of the villages. And of course, the other 5 villages, since they hated each other anyway, they all said no. So they went to war. That was
all right.
Yeah, let's kill each other off.
Well, as Mark Twain said, whiskey is for drinking and water is for fighting over.
There you go. That's what they did here. So that area that used to be the lake is where I used to walk my dog Moose, and where the substation is, and so all that stuff is all interconnected together. It's really, really bizarre. But the big battle between my village and the next one over to the west is the meadow that where I do the majority of my research. So it's shaped kind of like a lung. You can see it from space. It's enormous, and this is where the battle was.
So now we've sort of postulated that at the time when the lake was there, that there was sort of a portal that was basically like in on or over the lake.
Something,
and since they drained it, that didn't make any damn difference. It's still there. And for reference to something like this, you can go look at Arthurian legend, The Lady of the Lake. Okay, there's a portal there. The lady can, pop out and lob a scimitar at you or something. But
I never thought of that.
Yeah. The moistened tot can lob a scimitar at you. But, it's sort of the same concept. It just, it doesn't have to be on dry land to be a portal there. In fact, there's lots of legendary about, being enchanted springs and, enchanted ponds and stuff like that. And weird things would appear around there. So they could be a portal there too. But the point here is that with the evidence that we've got and what your research has seemed to uncover, it does seem like there's some sort of a portal there and you've got activity around there because of it. And I wonder if, how much you think the others are connected just to ley lines and portals. Well, because it doesn't seem like you really see evidence of them in places other than like where there's portals or megaliths or something.
I see them primarily where there's water sources, whether it be a creek flowing or a lake or a spring. That's where that's where I've seen them, or in and on and around Bigfoot.
Okay.
Yeah, one of we put up a theory. We find a piece of evidence, we examine it, and then based on that evidence, you postulate and create a theory. Then you go out and you test it, and if it's wrong, that's fine, because then you've realized one particular path in this field that isn't correct.
Yeah.
So you can put that to the side and re-examine what your evidence and what your new findings are. And that's pretty much what I've tried to do over here, is look at this from a scientific view, so that it's not magic, it's not the woo-woo, it's basically technology or natural forces at work that are being manipulated that we simply don't understand.
Yeah.
And I typically explain it. If you showed George Washington an iPhone, he would probably have you strung up for witchcraft.
Oh yeah, black magic, burning at the stake.
Right. It's just a technology they don't understand.
Yeah, Isaac Asimov, you remember what he said, any sufficiently advanced technology can easily be mistaken as, black magic sorcery, I'm just paraphrasing, by somebody that doesn't know what they're looking at.
Right, and that's basically how I've tried to look at this particular topic, to the point that I started seeing some really bizarre things in screenshots, things like movement, things like multiplication of creatures, this kind of stuff, and
illusionary woods that aren't there, that switch to a completely different
tree
place.
Trunks that don't make it to the ground.
Yeah,
this kind of stuff. And I have a few photos, I think, on my external drive. Unfortunately, I had hundreds of photographs in folders on my desktop of my Mac, and then my Mac committed suicide. So I lost the majority of those photos. Some were mine, but the majority of them were actually from other researchers that I was trying to prove that what I'm finding is also happening in the U.S. So things like, cloaked beings walking up towards the camera while you can see additional ones peeking around a tree further back away from the camera. I've seen that so many times, it's insane.
Yeah, and then there's the orb thing too. You're talking about the others being connected to the Bigfoot phenomenon. The orbs are seen around them a lot too.
Exactly.
I was just talking to somebody earlier today that's got orb phenomena down in Florida, and he's actually been out with a ghost box talking while the orbs are there, and he's got answers on the ghost box and stuff. And at the same time, he's getting video of himself, and the orbs are like literally flying into and out of his head. While he's talking on this ghost box. And he thinks what they're doing is they're absorbing energy from him in order to have the energy to answer.
A lot of the ghost hunters use that particular theory, that they're sucking energy off of someone in order to be able to manifest or to be able to communicate.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that one. And I guess this is a good enough place as any to
go back a little bit and tell us about your orb experience.
Yeah,
and then go to this.
January 2016, I guess it was. It was while I was filming the West Creek series 1, 2, and 3 because it was so long. I had to break it up into 3 parts, and they're still nearly an hour long each. West Creek 3, I'm basically just gathering all my stuff up. I'm going to head back to the car. I've had several hours of insanity that has taken place in the woods. I've got one camera set up that's shooting video off towards the forest. The other, all of my batteries have been drained. I mean, like sucked dry. And I've got one of those cameras on a small tripod leaning against a tree. And as I turn around to grab that camera and tripod, I got hit in the head by an orb. Now, this was probably about the size of a baseball and about the same color, too. So kind of like an off-white. But the thing was moving supersonic speed. If I had not turned around, it would have hit me in the back of the head. And I probably wouldn't have even known, or noticed that it had happened. But I had as I turned around, it hit me in the forehead directly above my right eye, which kind of gets important later on.
Frontal lobe.
Yeah, frontal lobe, bang, right there in the right at the eyebrow, and I could actually feel it as it went in, but it kind of felt like a puff of air, but it also had more substance to it. But it didn't hurt. But I kind of freaked out over that. I could be heard on screaming and cussing, like, "What the heck was that?" Oh my God, I just got hit by an orb. It was pretty bizarre. But the real bizarre stuff happened the next day. So when I woke up that next morning, I was feeling really, really bad because I had been zapped. That day I'd been zapped. And every time that happened, I would feel like I'd been run over by a truck. All my joints felt like they had like little shards of broken glass in them. Of course, the pee blood right away, first thing in the morning, it'd be pee and blood. And I would spend the next day or two basically bedridden. Morning when I woke up, here's the broken glass in the bones and peed blood. And I came and I sat down on the couch and I looked down at the floor and I noticed a spot in my vision but it was only in the right eye. And it was like just below where you try to, where your focal point is, where you're looking at things. So it's like just below my pupil. I even went and looked in the mirror just to see if I had something on my eye because it didn't hurt, but it was there and it looked like it was, probably 4 feet in front of me, but it was everywhere. But then as I started to look around at other things, I noticed that my vision was also like messed up. It was like looking through either kind of like looking through a layer of water or looking through a layer of cellophane film. Of the best I can say it, I guess, is like their world. Now, I don't know if that's a dimensional thing. I don't know if it's something that's here all the time that's out of our little skinny sliver of normal light.
They're
vision.
beyond the veil, and that's what it says in the Bible too. That they're hidden from us on purpose because we'd freak out if we could actually see what was there.
And I'll tell you what, I freaked out for about 30 days. I mean, like literally, it was about a month long, and it continued to get worse and worse and worse. The longer it stayed in there, the more difficult it became. I gave up driving because I really couldn't trust what I was actually seeing.
Because you're seeing like their reality and then like
their reality,
the background, our reality. Yeah,
right. It was overlaid our reality. And I had just gotten my really good camera, and I'm standing in one farm field, and I'm shooting diagonally across that farm field and another one to the main road that runs from our village over to the next one. And there's a sidewalk there. And as I'm looking at that sidewalk, on full zoom, I see two very large, kind of blobbish critters walking down the sidewalk, and they had to be about 15 feet tall because it's basically a soccer goal that's there, as part of the playground for the kids. And it's as they go by it, just walking down the sidewalk, their head height is even with this fence that's behind the soccer goal. And so I spent like that next 30 days seeing all kinds of weirdness like this. It drove me nuts. And a lot of people don't know this, but I'm actually an ordained minister. I was in a deliverance ministry in Los Angeles for 3.5 years before I moved to Idaho. The only thing I knew to fall back on was my Christian experience, and I went through a self-deliverance. And when I did, whatever this thing that was in me, because I swear it was like having a really bad roommate, inside your head.
Yeah.
It left, but it left a residual vision thing going on. So I see our normal reality fine now. There's no cellophane thing, veil or whatever it is that's in front of it that was overlaid it. That's gone. But as far as the others and Sasquatch, even when they're hiding behind trees or hiding in the bushes, I see them just as clear as I would see you walking, through a field. They are there. So it's a very bizarre thing. I don't know how to. So one thing that I would really, really recommend researchers, if you see the orbs, remember what the Native Americans said. If you see them, leave, turn around and go.
Well, the other thing you should mention is the side effect to having this thing basically possessing you for a while. You did things that you would not do normally.
Yeah, that's true, because I have a hard drive. It's a 2 terabyte hard drive that's pretty close to full, and I had some just absolutely amazing things that I had caught on video that I had not yet released. I went through all of my photographs, all my screenshots, other video stuff that I hadn't uploaded yet, and I just started deleting stuff.
And why do that?
That makes no sense.
Right. I mean, all the time and effort you put into gathering all this information and all these great images, and all of a sudden, and physical pain and, expense, time. And then all of a sudden you're just like, man, I'm just going to delete everything.
Yeah, just get rid of it. Yeah, that just doesn't make any sense to keep that around. It was weird because what was going through my head at the time as I was doing this was, you know what, I am so done with this Bigfoot stuff. I'm just going to go ahead and delete everything. That doesn't make any sense. Even if as a researcher, he's been at it this long, even if that was something that I had decided to do, the last thing I would do is get rid of all the good stuff. And I mean, good stuff.
Yeah.
Like stuff coming out of trees, that That really just doesn't make any sense. But it wasn't even just my footage. It was everybody else's footage, too. I was seeing the stuff in their footage that they hadn't seen.
Yeah. I'm not sure you got the picture anymore handy, but if you do, make sure you send it, where you had taken a picture or video of an area of woods, and then you took another one later, and it was like the woods had literally changed. Trees had disappeared, and,
Right. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have that one, but I do have some other screenshots, like the one around Big Red, that has trees that aren't there. Stuff from the meadow where the tree trunk doesn't actually make it all the way to the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah, the majority of that stuff, because I'd see it in mine, I'd be like, okay, I've got the film. I don't need to necessarily keep the screenshot, but I do need to find other researchers that have experienced the same thing in their footage, and they simply didn't catch it.
Yeah.
There's a guy down in Alabama, forgot his name, but I'm hickory tree where the branches were growing out of one tree into another tree. That doesn't happen.
What?
Yeah, it was like literally coming out of one tree and going into the tree that was right next to it. That was probably 12 feet, 15 feet away. The branches growing straight into it.
What the hell?
We don't, that's something that we kind of overlook. We expect to see trees, so we don't pay any attention to them.
Yeah.
Even if the tree trunk doesn't go to the ground. And I can't tell how many times I've seen that. And other stuff that looks like there's a tree there, but it's not. There's no tree there. It's kind of almost the same color as the trees that are next to it, but not quite.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that now, sticks out in my eye. I catch that stuff. Because I'd see it in mine, I'd be like, okay, I've got the film. I don't need to necessarily keep the screenshot, but I do need to find other researchers that have experienced the same thing in their footage, and they simply didn't catch it.
Yeah.
There's a guy down in Alabama, forgot his name, but I'm hickory tree where the branches were growing out of one tree into another tree. That doesn't happen.
What?
Yeah, it was like literally coming out of one tree and going into the tree that was right next to it. That was probably 12 feet, 15 feet away. The branches growing straight into it.
What the hell?
We don't, that's something that we kind of overlook. We expect to see trees, so we don't pay any attention to them.
Yeah.
Even if the tree trunk doesn't go to the ground. And I can't tell how many times I've seen that. And other stuff that looks like there's a tree there, but it's not. There's no tree there. It's kind of almost the same color as the trees that are next to it, but not quite.
Yeah.
It's one of the things that now, sticks out in my eye. I catch that stuff. Or the
look for
totem
the
poles. How many researchers have seen totem poles of heads stacked on top of each other, trying to look like a tree?
Yeah.
Brown Dwarf has some footage that he shot probably 8 months ago, and not only because of what's become of my vision, but also because of my military training. This one particular tree stood out. And what it was Bigfoot creatures, as well as whether they were babies or Littlefoots or, what the heck they were all kind of huddled around facing each other into a really tight circle. And initially you would look at that as a tree that he's walking by. And I'm sure that as he was walking by it, it was just a tree to him. But they all have faces, and they're kind of looking down at him as he goes walking by. And the only reason I really caught that is because the color and texture was different than all of the surrounding trees. So as a redwood, this one was just a little too red.
Right. Well, even when they're not doing that, they tend to stack up. I've seen quite a few pictures like that. No, a good one is, I think I've got it in the outro part of the show, where there's a big black one sort of just basically sitting out in the open, and it's got a baby sitting on its head.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, they kind of do this stuff anyway. And if you look at like other pictures of primates and stuff, and they're all curious and they're looking at something, they'll stack up like that. It's kind of weird.
The babies will, hang onto the backs and hang around mama's neck, and
yeah, and all of a sudden you'll have a whole bunch of faces all in one place, and you'll be like, "What the hell?"
Yeah. Well, that was one of the things that also bothered me, besides seeing the really weird stuff in screenshots, was how they don't seem to take up the same amount of space that we would normally expect, in this 3D world that we're in.
Right.
Where are you putting? You've got all these heads stacked up. Where are you putting the bodies?
Yeah. They'll just laying
pretty
flat on top of each other, back to stomach.
Exactly. Head. But still, it's not even wide enough to cover the shoulders, and the thickness of the back of a Sasquatch is. I mean, they're thick. Chest and back. They are. Ooh. If you have to shoot.
Well, not much thicker than the width of a car or anything. Yeah.
Yeah, not much wider than a car, exactly. But that isn't showing up in those totem poles. It's only the head stacked on top of each other. Where's the rest of the body?
Well, how much of that do you think is actually Bigfoot with weird visual manipulation stuff that they're pulling, and how much of it do you think is the others?
That's actually an excellent question. And based on some recent stuff I heard out of the reservation that Rich Soul had gone to, Omaha Reservation, out in Nebraska, and some stuff that I had also heard from Thomas Powell there in Pacific Northwest.
Yep.
Something about a separation of physical body and astral body. Well, according to both of them, it's this astral body is what's able to cloak. Whether, and then of course some of the stuff that Richard was talking about in the previous episode of eating the quartz crystals.
Yeah. Well, Kat's mentioned that too, and I've actually been researching it and seeing, since she mentioned it, I started looking around all the hot spots that I have here in this area and going, I know where these places are, and I go there. I'm just going to look around and see if there's quartz there. And you know what? There is in every one of them.
Every single one of them. Seeing, places, I used to call them blinds, ground blinds, where they would like hang out and watch for us. Finding little pieces of quartz crystal where they're sitting. Usually there's a couple of twigs making an X right there in the middle of the sea.
Yeah.
This is something that has happened repeatedly to many, many researchers all over the world. And I see the same thing over here. And the other thing is charcoal, little bits of burned sticks. Now, if you live in the West, the scourge of the West is fires, forest fires.
Yeah.
It's not hard to find a charred piece of wood in the western U.S., whether it be the Rockies or the Sierras or the Cascades. It's everywhere. But over here, we don't get forest fires. It just literally doesn't happen. And people don't go camping over here like we do in the U.S. You're not going to find little, campfire spots. And yet, in those ground blinds, I'm finding little pieces of charcoal all of the time. The guy up in Bremen just found the same thing. He found actually not only a bag of charcoal, but a bunch of sticks that had been charred. Literally charred black, and they don't camp. It's actually dangerous to go camping over here because of the ticks.
Yeah. Well, and plus the dog man. Yeah, the dog man will plug you.
Yeah.
You got those freaking werewolves over there. We were joking about this before we started recording about how the Germans are really thorough about doing things, and they probably did their best to wipe out all the werewolves at one point. But what happened? They're slacking off. They're reappearing now. They
really are. But because the forest for several centuries now has been a safe place, because they did go through and mass genocide of anything canine and upright. Their kids are allowed to go play in the forest as basically as an extension of their yard. The forest is a safe place for the kids to go play, and if they could be 7, 8 years old out there, with their friends of the same age, a couple kids together out there in the forest playing all day long.
Yeah.
We did the same thing when I was a kid, but I lived in the city, whether it was in Los Angeles or in Northern California in the Sacramento area. During the summer, jump on our bikes, and we wouldn't be home until daylight or till dusk.
Yeah.
That was it. We just, we'd go off and play and ride bikes, and, we were in our just pre-teens right up to that 12, 13, 14-year age, and then, of course, 14. Our motives go from fishing to girls, and so that wasn't such a big topic, but that's what we did. And they do the same thing here, only at a much younger age, and their choice of where they're playing out there in the forest. It's not as unpopulated out there as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Every researcher out there is talking about the population boom, and this place is no different. In fact, it's probably getting bigger and more concentrated out there than most of the guys have seen in the stateside. Yeah. It's really nuts. Look at all the sightings in the UK. Whether it's a cryptid Bigfoot or a dog man or black cats, all that stuff is on the rise. Deborah Hatzwell, of course, she's the repository up there of the reports. She's staying extremely busy.
Yeah.
I
mean, for God's sake, like we said earlier in the show, I'm getting people contacting me from Ireland going, by the way, I'm finding tree structures.
Yeah. What do I do with these things? Keep looking. You'll find more.
Right, exactly. And it's knowing what to look for. One of the things that surprised me is when I was communicating with Igor Burtsev, he mentioned that he collects a lot of reports near Moscow. And I'm like, wow, yeah, cool. Do you have a map of that? Yeah, I got a map. So he sends me the map, and I'm looking. And I'm expecting it's going to be an area map where Moscow is going to be a dot. And then there's going to be a spider web coming out from it of roads, and there'll be little cities around that, and there'll be, some reports out there in those little cities outside of Moscow. No. The suburbs are full of reports, and there's reports from, actually in Moscow. This is just the city and the suburbs around it.
Yes. That's what I'm finding here. That's what the whole trip to Wiesbaden, that's what that was about. There is a nature park on the edge of town where she'll take her mom, but the majority of the places that she's going is what she calls Trail 2 and Trail 3, and we were unable to make Trail 3. I mean, I didn't get out there, so the majority of that footage is just in the Trail 2, which is primarily they're in the city, surrounded by residential stuff.
Yeah,
It's a very large nature park, but it's inside the city.
Right.
That's not supposed to happen.
Well, I've noticed a bunch of that too, where you'll actually have a good-sized city, and people will be like, "Hey, I saw something in the park right in the city," and everybody's like,
Yeah,
haha, no way.
Sure,
and then you go look at the map, and you go, "Well, but that park is on the edge of the city. It sort of juts into the city. And it's connected like 2 million acre forest."
Exactly.
Like, oh, okay, now I can see how they could be right there.
Yeah, as long as there's access to, an outlying forest, I have no problems with it. It's just that this particular one doesn't.
Yeah.
Those homes and stuff that are around there, they were built in the 1700s. It's not like we're encroaching into their territory.
No.
If any encroachment happened, it was a very, very long time ago. Now, I know that there is a spring where the water bubbles out of the ground and runs down through this creek and goes into this little mucky pond that's there, which means that there's probably caverns and everything else under there.
Yeah, probably a karst system like we were talking about again before we were recording.
With Rich.
Talk about a lot before we record. But yeah, Rich brought this up, and again, it's really likely that they're using subterranean passageways for travel routes to keep out of the eyes of prying dumb humans. And
Exactly.
they can move around during the day underground. We ain't gonna know about it.
We
At
won't have
night,
a clue.
yeah, at night on the surface, then they're pretty safe too, because we're blind unless we got a flashlight, practically.
Especially over here. I mean, they could walk down the street over here because they have. If you look at some of the pictures that were done for like Grimm's fairy tales, they always had their little their little grass hutted roof and a window with shutters on them. Well, those shutters are actually real. And the modern version of that they call a rollerladen, which is it's basically like the storm shutters that you see in hurricane areas, made out of aluminum crack, and they roll them down and seal off the outside.
I thought you were going to tell me it meant like monster shades or something. So, pull the monster shades. It's dark. You don't want to see the monster.
It might actually be, but that's what they do. So it gets dark. The shades go down, and whatever happens outside happens outside. Nobody's able to see it because they close the blind.
Ignore the screams and the pounding on the door.
Yeah, don't worry about those. No, that's imaginary. It's just in your head.
Don't worry, we'll check the porch after sunup if they're still there.
Bremen, we talked about the woods that this guy is finding all this crazy activity up there right now. 2012, a woman that was walking in this particular set of woods that he's working right now, she came out of that forest screaming, crying, hysterical. People came, running up to help her, and the screams were still, they could hear it, and everybody could hear it, what was going on in the forest. So they called up the Polizei. The Polizei came out there in mass. I mean, like crazy. I'm sure the first cops that arrived, hearing this, got on the radio, and I mean, they came in force and did a complete search of the forest and found nothing. But that's an actual police report. That's on the blotter back in 2012. This is the area that he's concentrating on now, because he'd found it in a different part of it's all part of the same forest. But he would walk his dog primarily in a different section of the woods. And now, because of the activity that he was getting over there, he goes, you know what? That 2012 report, let me go take a look over there. And we think that he's actually found one of the places they live. And it's where the berry bushes go up over the top of a ditch. Again, kind of a subterranean world right there, where they're completely hidden and nobody would ever possibly expect to even look, because that's berry bushes. Those are blackberries. They have massive, major thorns on them. But I have that also in my area. You know, the part that I call Bubba's Woods, and you can give you some pictures of that, both inside and outside. In fact, you can see the videos that I've shot in there, and how the structures in there change over time. But there's the whole back area is completely lined with berry bushes. And I would be on one side and Bubba would be on the other. And, you know, unfortunately, I could never get video of him that close. He always kept that wall of blackberries between us.
Yeah.
I do have a screenshot of him that was shot from about 200 meters away. He was out right on the edge of the tree line, and it looks like he's talking to he's 12 feet tall. So he's standing directly behind this little skinny birch tree, and there's one of the main limbs is coming off, and then a little twig off of that where there's a fork right next to his eye. And I measured that from that twig to the ground where he was standing is 11 feet 5 inches, which clearly puts him, that's at the eye, it puts him over 12 feet. And he is a massive dude. Massive. I mean, he's probably talking 5 feet across at the shoulders, maybe a little more.
Yeah.
3.5 to 4 feet deep, thick chest, you know, from the chest to the back. And he's talking to something that looks like an upright black lab that is clearly not a physical entity. So is it one of the others? Is this, you know, it doesn't look like what we've heard of as, you know, Dogman reports with a triangle wolf or German Shepherd head. This thing looks like just an upright black lab.
Right.
And he's got his left.
What do the cat calls those? Opie or something? They're the alien Dogman type. They're not the like dangerous ones. They're just, you know, sort of like
he doesn't look like
Dogman that are intelligent. Yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he would be, you know, any more dangerous than a black lab is.
Yeah, they just look, well.
Throw the ball for him.
Right. And this could be part of what the you know, the old biblical and old Greek legends about, and even, you know, St. Christopher, the cynocephaly, that sort of thing, the dog-headed people.
That's funny actually that you brought that up, because the lady that introduced me to Wiesbaden and the parks that are up there, she actually has a picture of St. Christopher on her wall, standing in this creek that's, you know, over an island. I had never known that, you know, St. Christopher was actually a dog man.
Well, he started out that way, but apparently he got promoted.
Is that how it worked? Because every St. Christopher medal I've always seen, it was a person. Although I never really looked, you know, completely close at it to see if that was a dog man.
Well, the legend was that he was one of the prototypical horrendously terrifying warriors that would get hired as mercenaries, and then he converted to Christianity, and he became such a devout Christian that he actually transformed back into a human. Or became a human, and, you know, spent the rest of his lives being a human, you know, holy man.
You know, honestly, based on some of the stuff that I've seen over here, and the way that the name of Jesus works, you know, when you've got one stuck in your head, it really wouldn't surprise me how much of these old legends and supposed myths, how true are they really?
Well, they have to cover up that layer of reality with a big layer of lies, so that you won't know reality.
You won't know the difference. Yeah.
Yeah. So hey, you did. I don't think you mentioned to anybody where you got the picture of the ogre at. How'd that all happen?
I was actually climbing up the side of the mountain that I was actually following leaners. Over here, leaners are trail markers. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they stay right next to those, even if they're like, you know, someplace that they're making a daily trip or a nightly trip. They follow those trail markers, the leaners, like religiously. I don't know why, but I was following them up the side of a mountain, and when I got to the top of the mountain, the leaners became smaller and smaller, and then they became like little limbs hanging, stick hangs, all the way down to like tiny little twig hangs as I was coming through this like a hedgerow. And by following them, I found like this backdoor trail into the area that I call the Enchanted Forest, because it was completely different than all of the woods that surround it, which are all oak and beech trees and, massive 300-year-old oak trees and beech trees. And this was all birch and fir.
Wow.
And two giant spruce trees. The most perfect Christmas tree. Yeah, those where the limbs go all the way to the ground and things can hide underneath them.
Yeah. Yeah, you mean like the one that was had snow on it and had that freaking Type 4 giving me the grin from behind it? That's black spruce?
The one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I had never even heard of such a that kind of a behavior, that something would get underneath there and then stand up in where the tree trunk is. And then all they have to do is push the branches down and look at you, and they're completely hidden.
Yep.
I had climbed into one of the ground blinds that was there, and all of a sudden I've got noise that's going on around me, like literally 360 degrees around me. The camera's acting up like crazy. I'm moving it too fast a little bit, but the majority of the stuff that was going on seemed to be, as now that I know quite a bit more about what EMF does to cameras, a lot of that is EMF interference. But I'm moving the camera around, and as I'm going past those spruce trees, here it is, sitting right there, eyeballing me. Yeah, wow. that really freaked me out the first time I saw that. When I caught that, I went, "Oh my God, that's like Shrek."
Yeah. Well, I know when you showed it to me, that was my reaction too. I'm like, Shrek turned orange. What the hell is that? Yeah. The same reaction I kind of had when I saw Leo's picture of the troll up in Nova Scotia.
Yes.
It was like, oh, great, trolls are real. And then right around the same time, you sent me that picture, and I'm like, oh, wonderful. Ogres are real too. Oh, great. I don't want to know what else is real. Quit sending me pictures.
Yeah, stop, people, stop.
Yeah.
Keep it to yourself.
This is going down a slippery slope, and I don't like where it's leading.
And I had always assumed that an ogre was just the French name for Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I'm very close to France. The border is like an hour's drive away, and it's complete forest all the way from there to here. Even getting underneath or over the top of autobahns, there are routes that they would be exposed for less than a couple of seconds to get here. Apparently an ogre is not a French Bigfoot or a French wild man. They are their own critter, and they are even bigger. They are bigger than a Bigfoot.
Oh, good God!
His head is like the size of a big rig's tire. I mean, it's huge. He's a big dude. Or girl, I don't know. The only thing sticking down through where he pushed the branches down is the head, but the head's very clear. It's very clearly there. So yeah, he's nuts.
Yeah, it's just like trolls. When I saw that picture that Leo took, and then went and did some further investigation and got a hold of Crypto Sweden and talked to them and talked to my insider and a couple other people that I know. And went like, well, yeah, a troll isn't the same thing as a Bigfoot either. As it turns out, they have words for all three things in Scandinavia: giants, Bigfoot, and trolls, and they're not the same things.
Wow.
Not too happy about that. It's kind of nice if you can lump them all in one category and go, no, I don't want three giant dangerous cryptids wandering around. Just one.
One will be fine.
Yeah, that one's more than enough.
You don't need more. The Pennsylvania Dutch and the albatwitch, aka the apple snitch, that actually comes from over here.
Germany, yeah.
Germans. Germans, not Dutch. Although they are a Germanic tribe, their language is different.
Well, it's because they called them the Pennsylvania Deutsch, and they mispronounced it Dutch, and that's where it
right.
came.
Yeah, it's German. They are Germans. In fact, the Martin Guitar Company that's there in PA. They come from here first.
Yeah. Well, the Germans may have smuggled them over there to start with, but they're all over the damn place now. I know somebody got chased out of the woods here in over by Walla Walla, Washington last year. They got chased out of the woods by one of those little creeps.
Wow. The Alb or the Alba, there's the where I live, there's a place called the Schwäbisch Alb. Sometimes they call it Schwäbisch Alba, which is basically a hill about 40 kilometers to my south. And it's at the time back, you look at that area a couple of hundred years ago, and that was an enchanted forest where the only people that lived there were, thugs and robbers and, bad people that had no money, that, not established in the one of the local villages, and all these other beings. That's where they lived. Here where I live, we have the Ulberg term, which means basically the Owl Mountain Tower, and it's the highest mountain in the region, and on top of it is another tower that's like 200 meters tall.
Jeez.
Yeah, it's a big, tall tower, and when you look across the valley below, you can see the Schwäbisch Alb and all of the forest that covers from there to here. All of it is connected. So we got little people here. We've got, so the Alba Twitch is actually the gliding elf. That's the closest translation that I can get for an Alba Twitch is gliding elf, which of course that's what they do extremely quickly.
And another translation in English would be sneaky little creeps.
There you go. There you go. The sneaky creeps.
Sneaky creeps. So that's kind of funny because one of my researcher friends in Colorado, their nickname for the Bigfoot that they're researching they call them creepers.
We've used that term also in the Sierras in California because of the weird the belly crawl /
spider crawl thing.
Yeah, spider crawl thing, and how they were able to do that so quickly and quietly and sneak right up on you. And sit there and watch you.
Oh, God.
Gutsy, man.
They're creepers.
Yeah, I don't like those. I don't like those. Honestly, when I see them do that spider crawl thing, I've seen it like 3 or 4 times over the last 14 years, and honestly, it really creeps me out. The hair goes up in the back of the neck. I get like really panicky on the inside, and that's not something that I do anymore. I've seen enough of these things over the years now that even like when Big Red was yelling at me and getting closer as he was doing it, all I did was hide behind a tree. I'd basically do the same thing that they did and try to get him on camera. Yeah. Unfortunately, it was like another 10 minutes in the video before I could actually get him on camera. And then, of course, I got zapped, and, it's jelly brain after that, so who cares?
Yeah.
Just don't.
Then you're like throwing the camera over your shoulder and dancing in a circle. Like, la, 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 la.
EMF detector is going, the alarm is ringing like crazy. I'm like, oh, look,
Hey, cute, pretty colors. Cool.
Yeah, it was nuts. Swinging the camera around. I had this weird, it started off sounding like an 800-pound woodpecker up in a tree above my head somewhere. Bang, 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 bang. And it was very methodical, and it turned into something that sounded more like a jackhammer, that metallic bang, 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 bang. And then it morphed into screams from the top of the hill, but it was always above my head. And I'm like, oh, what the heck is that? So after everything that I narrated after the zap, yeah, forget it. Yeah, jelly brain. Yeah.
Jeez.
But the camera can't. Well, they kind of can get manipulated. but the camera's still there to catch it. So one of the things I love about shooting video now is before, when I was in the Sierras and in Idaho, all I had with me was a still camera, and I could take a picture of a track or a trackway or a butt print in the ground or tree structures, but I could never get as it was happening.
Right.
Video now, it's like I turn on the camera as I'm in the car. I turn on the camera because you never know what might take off running across the meadow.
Right. As soon as you get out of the car.
Exactly. So the camera stays on from the time that I get there to the time that I leave. The only time it gets shut off is if I have to change batteries. And sometimes that happens a lot.
Yeah, I know some people that every time they go into their research area, they get there, all their batteries are fried.
Yeah.
They zap the backpack full of batteries before they get
I've
back
never
where
had
they're
them
going to
do
anything.
that. The only time I've been hit with battery drain to the point where a fresh battery that's supposed to last, 220 minutes is like gone in 5 minutes. But for some reason, the batteries that were in the backpack, the spares, it's only been batteries that were actually in something working with it turned on has gotten zapped. How do they how could they control that? I don't know. But
one of
only
the
the things that was engaged. So if it's in a camera and the camera's turned on, zap it, and it gets zeroed out. But what's weird is I changed the battery, put in a new fresh battery, and on we go. Later on, the used battery, most of the time, still has half a charge in it.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get it out of that area, it was like half full again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would love to hear other researchers on that, with their experiences with that. Yeah, I've had moments of missing time. About 45 minutes of missing time. One of the last times that I had gone out before I had my shoulder rebuilt. Doctor said it's going to take a year to heal, so I went out and got as much footage as I could to keep the channel going. And during one of those times, in fact, most of the footage that I shot during that time, I've never used. It was just sitting on that external drive. I had memories of being out there shooting video, but the really bizarre part of it was it's got to be a screen memory. I'm looking at myself narrating the video from a point, say, 10 to 15 feet away, and considerably higher, much higher off the ground than my short butt is.
Mm-hmm.
And these are memories I have of this entire little section of the forest. A ground blind that goes over a creek that's all woven together, and then another blind where they had pulled the branches of a tree down, butt prints and kick prints in the dirt, nice footprints. But when I come back on camera, where I'm in my right head, I am breathing so hard that like I just ran from the devil. I mean, and running from them it's just not something that I do. If they're gonna get me, they're gonna get me. I can't outrun them. I'm a disabled vet as it is. I have a hard enough time just walking and carrying a camera. I'm not running from them. And typically, I call it playing the dumb old country boy. So I'm getting yelled at, I'm getting screams, or something's throwing rocks up through the trees, and that kind of stuff. I know where the rocks are coming from based on the trajectory,
right? Because
of military training. But I'll look up in the trees like an idiot. What the heck? Where'd that come from? Duh. And I'll just keep on walking.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes they get upset and they ramp up the activity, and I'll just continue to play dumb country boy until they either get frustrated and just say to heck with it and leave me alone, or they'll step out and hopefully have the camera running.
Yeah.
So
It's
that's another
happened
reason why I
before.
keep that sucker running, because I never know when they're gonna show up and they're gonna get frustrated with me and step out. So I just keep that sucker running, 24/7. If I'm out there, that camera is turned on. And something I've started doing lately is I have that GoPro clone. So it's a copy of the GoPro 5. So it's it'll shoot 4K and all that good stuff too. But I don't mess around with that. Just the highest frame rate possible in 1080.
Right.
Or if I can get a higher frame rate than that in 720, I'll use that. And I'll use a clip-on mount, and I'll put it on my backpack. Scott Carpenter made the whole back trail cam, is what he calls it, back trail camera, as a thing. He'd mount a full-on camcorder on his shoulder strap. I can never get that thing to be setting at the right angle. But a GoPro, yeah, they make a clip mount for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I do that shooting behind me, and the batteries are good for about 50-55 minutes, and of course unless it gets zapped, and then then I have spares. I have extras.
Right on. It's always good to have that backup plan. Well, hey, brother, I'm looking at the time here, and we have way run out of it. So we're going to have to sign off for this episode, but I'm definitely hoping you'll come back and do another one, and I really appreciate you just being here for this one. I should mention to the listeners that this has been a long time coming, and that you almost died and got away with not being on the show.
Yeah, I almost did. That is for sure. I had to have a triple bypass last October, I think it was.
Yeah.
It was either end of September or the beginning of October. But yeah, that was a rough one. I'm still recovering from that. So this is, summer the next following year.
Yeah.
And I still haven't finished healing.
So we're lucky he survived to be on the show here. I told him he couldn't die until he was on the show.
You did say that, actually.
Yep. It's all my fault.
I did. Yeah, that's your fault. So,
well, now you might actually come back to the U.S.
Got a little sign-off blurb that you've got about, not hugging the Wookiee. You need to add that. Stay away from the orbs.
Yeah, stay away from the orbs, too. That's another good one. Well,
You don't want that.
No, over there in Europe, they got another name for him, too, Will-o'-the-Wisp. Go look up what Will-o'-the-Wisp is.
Yeah. That
lures you to your doom.
I've got another one, something lantern.
It
looks like a lantern floating through the trees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. God, I used to know what that name was, too. I know Fairy Lantern's another version of it. That's
Fairy Lantern is the English version, but the Germans have a name for it too. Something Lantern. I don't remember what it is. Here, and get up close and personal with these guys, because they are less aggressive here. Probably because we don't have guns, and carrying in the forest and shooting at them. Anybody who wants to do it before I have to leave here, which is going to be pretty soon, let me know.
Well, there's the open invite, guys. Go to Deutschland, drink some beer, and go find German Bigfoot.
Yeah, and I have a car, so you don't have to rent a car. You got a place to stay and food to eat. You don't have to deal with all the expenses of just get here. Use one of the online cheaper ticket distribution places.
Yeah.
And come hang out with me. You'll go meet Bubba. That's my big boy. That's I would almost say nice. Definitely not aggressive, but almost nice.
In as much as they're capable of actually seeing nice.
Right. Extremely curious. Let's put it that way. He is extremely curious about us and what we do. So anyway, I know we've gone over time, so I can go ahead and I'll shut up now, and you can sign us out.
Well, I just prefer to keep talking for like another 3 hours, but it's actually 3:30 a.m. here, and I'm getting exhausted, and we've gone over time. So
wow.
You do have to sign out. And yeah, you have to not die until you can come back and do at least one more show. So you're stuck living for a while longer.
I'm actually, other than the muscle spasms that kind of grab my chest, because they cut through the sternum instead of cutting it out. They cut through it and wired it back together.
Oh.
Yeah, they did this while I was awake and alive. They didn't put me on a heart-lung machine or anything. They said that it looks like an octopus that comes down, grabs the heart, lifts it out of your chest, and then they do it while the booger is still pumping.
Yeah.
I don't know, but the meat and the muscles between the ribs they'll like flare up and do muscle spasms that literally takes my chest, my ribs around my chest, and caves it in on top of my heart. But that's just like weird muscle spasm stuff. As soon as that's over, I'm good. I basically got probably another 20 years on this heart before I'll need another stent or something in there.
Yeah. Well, if you quit getting frickin' zapped all the time anyway, maybe.
Honestly, that was one of the other reasons I kind of really pulled back on the research. I'm trying to look at the bright side. Where's the positives on this? I go out, I'm busting my butt, filming everything that I can, looking into everything that I can, all the time that I spend back at my laptop, looking into the old records, and only so I can get zapped and spend the next 2 days in bed, just completely in misery.
Mm-hmm.
So where's the positive side to this? I don't know.
Well, the positive side is after you present your evidence, the public insults you and tells you you're crazy.
Yes, that is the other. That is always a good thing.
Oh wait, that's not the positive side.
That and called all kinds of names by the Bigfoot community. I say that community part with air quotes. So
the unity of Bigfoot commies. So anyway, thanks again for being on the show. You can't die. You got to come back do the show again.
Will do.
Okay, that's the official doctor's notice. No dying. Okay. Don't get squished by any Wookiees either. And as for the rest of you guys, if you feel so inclined to help the show continue, I am still 100% viewer funded. I have been completely demonetized by YouTubby. And the only thing that's keeping the show going is the kind donations of wonderful viewers like you, some of whom have become the mighty knights and heroes of the realm due to their aid in continuing the quest to bring you the most kick-butt programs that I am capable of doing at this point. And with enough money, I'll upgrade it, make it even more kick-butt. That's the plan anyway. So, hope you enjoyed the show, and make sure to come back for the next one. And meanwhile, everybody be kind. Kind to everyone. Safety first, last, and always. Pay it forward. Don't be mean to people if you don't have to be. Don't flip off the mountain giant. Don't poke Dogman with a stick. Don't punt the puck, would you? And for God's sake, whatever you do, do not hug the Wookiee.